Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. I am so excited about today's guest, Michael Ramirez. I met him on, I think, May 26th, right? And I remember that day because I was at the DigiMarcon Houston conference. And I'm like a low-key SEO geek, and I saw his vendor table, stopped, talked to his nephew, and then I met him. And we've had the best conversation since. So, Michael, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Michelle. That day was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was interesting how you met my nephew first. And I came back, I believe I was like eating or something like that, or you took a quick break. And he's like, oh, you got to meet this amazing woman. She came over and she was so interested in SEO. And I'm like, really? I was like, where did she go? He's like, she said she'll be right back. So just watch out for her. And I think you were speaking next, and he's like, oh, actually, she's on TV over there. They had a TV inside the expo center. So I see you, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to go in there and hear her, talk and stuff. So I heard your talk, loved it. It was a pleasure meeting. It was a lot of fun.
Marketing for the Culture podcast is brought to you by the Concord Leadership Group and their new 10-week leadership coaching certification. Coaching helps leaders excel, and learning coaching skills helps leaders unlock the potential of their team. You will learn more about this ICF accredited coach certification in today's episode. So one of the reasons why I am so excited about you and what you're doing, and we're going to talk about your product later, but, and I'm a fan of Ahrefs, SEMrush. I've had the privilege of using those on previous jobs and even in my business a little bit, but we need more products, right? We need more well-known products, and we need more people of color in this space, right? The white guys can't have all the fun, okay? So, that was, once again, it's just a pleasure to meet you. And it's like, okay, how can I collaborate? How can I share with this brother? Just, because we need more people in the space. And I like to say SEO is not sexy. So I feel like people shy away from it.
That's fair. I won't argue with that.
But it's so important. So today we're going to talk about all things SEO. So why don't you just tell us about your background and what you're doing currently?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for that. And you're certainly right. SEO hasn't been the sexiest thing ever. How I got into it was I first was introduced to SEO at UT, so University of Texas at Austin. So I'm originally from San Antonio. I'm from a small neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio's west side. It's like hidden in plain sight, if you would. It's like 10 minutes west of downtown. But even I talk to people out there in San Antonio who are like born and raised there, and they're like, I have no idea where that place is. And I'm just like, of course you don't. And then very few people do. So it's a small community, primarily a Hispanic, community. It's been actually, there was a documentary of this area. I believe it's been a while, but 50 years ago or so. It's called Hunger in America. And it was this documentary of just exposing kind of some of the poorest places in San Antonio. And that was like one of them. There was a report, fast forward to 2019, I believe, another report came out that basically said things haven't really changed that much. So it's kind of a small, tight-knit community in a big city. I was, fortunate enough to have, parents that, help, facilitate with, education, getting me to school. My grades weren't that great kind of growing up, but I realized after high school, I had to step up my game. So I went to university in San Antonio, UTSA for 2 years, and then transferred out to UT Austin, which was a totally different, culture. It was a totally different environment, educational, just platform, and the way everything was just different. My world was turned upside down. And I decided to get into advertising. I was in marketing, in San Antonio, transferred into UT. Didn't get into the Macomb School, but I did get into the communication school, Moody School of Communication. And I figured, no, that's kind of the same, right? Advertising, marketing, it's kind of all one big just circle. But I found that like advertising is just one component of the whole marketing, bucket. And I was fortunate enough to learn about this. It was called at the time a Texas Media or Texas Interactive program. And they were targeting advertising students who wanted to get into digital media. And so I was one of very few, honestly. So there were different specializations. One was like creative folks who wanted to, design stuff or come up with like creative concepts for ads. There was another group of Texas media folks who just wanted to get into like media buying. And then there was this like third kind of group that were like the stepchild, or just this weird group of kids who wanted to do advertising on the internet. And this was 2008, 2009. I was kind of one of those weird kids that just like, yeah, I think everything's kind of transitioning over to the internet. It seems really popular right now. So me and it was like 5 or 7 other kids, students, got into this program. We had a great professor. His name is Gene Kincaid of the interactive program. That's where I was first introduced to SEO. And his biggest thing is like, yeah, everything is going to transfer online. Advertising is changing. Google has this, new cost per click model. And there's also this thing called SEO. And, these companies are paying agencies or specialists or consultants to get them on the first page of Google. And so that's where I first kind of was introduced to SEO. And essentially, I was in love with it as soon as I started my first internship. So in order to graduate from the program, you have to start an internship. Started my internship in a small advertising agency in Georgetown, Texas. And I was I called it the cave. I was in a dark room doing link building, reaching out to folks saying, can you link to my client's website? We'll give you a link back, doing reciprocal link exchanges. And ever since then, things have just progressed. I loved it. I moved up to like a management position at that agency. That agency kind of helped me evolve into starting my own consulting company in 2012 after like some layoffs. So it kind of pushed me into entrepreneurship. I've worked since then, I kind of went in and out of the corporate world trying to figure out what I want to do. If the business route was what I wanted to do or the corporate route was something I wanted to do. So I worked at a e-commerce platform company as a SEO, in-house SEO. I've also had a small stint at Nike, worked for Converse for a little bit. Worked as a VP of product marketing for an online education company. And now I've found that just like I want to, that entrepreneurial like spirit just always burned inside of me. So now I'm transitioning over into just doing my agency full time and running a SaaS product now. So long story. US.
Yeah, of course. So for the people, what is SEO?
Yes. No, that's a great question. Yeah, I should start off that way, right? So SEO is it's an acronym for search engine optimization. And it's a set of essential like guidelines set by Google in terms of what websites can and can't do in order to increase their chances of ranking higher in Google itself. And other search engines have their own guidelines. So it's a set of guidelines, it's a set of tactics, and it's a set of use cases. The guidelines I just explained, the tactics are really just kind of every SEO out there, every person who specializes in search engine optimization from a consulting perspective has their own tactics. And you'll see a lot of these tactics kind of on the internet or forums or blogs or what have you. And that's where kind of the use case aspect kind of comes into play, because everyone's got their own tactics, but they may not apply to you if you're a doctor or if you're a lawyer or if you're a medical website. Some of those tactics are going to kind of shift and some of them are going to have higher weight than others. So it's this kind of, science and art of helping websites just kind of find the right formula to that first page. And the value of being there is traffic. Some of the sites that get the most traffic in Google are going to be in those top 3 positions typically.
Right. So is it even possible to describe the power of Google? Because like you said, you want to be, we'll say at least the first page, right? So you can get more traffic. But at the same time, Google likes to do updates.
Yep.
And those updates don't always come at the best time. Just last week I was upset. I'm like, why are y'all updating my Gmail account when I'm trying to find an email? But
right. They'll move something, move a button around
But Google as a whole, they like to do updates. So I guess what's the best way to kind of measure your SEO strategy and tactics while Google's constantly changing?
That's such a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things in the industry when you're either you're doing SEO for yourself or you have clients that are wanting SEO. That's kind of the mindset going into it. Like things are going to change, and those are kind of the expectations I like to set early on with my clients. It's like, okay, what are the goals here? And a lot of people say it's like kind of a moving target to rank up on the first page, and sometimes it's true. But I think it comes from a good place on Google's end. And I'm not defending them, but I'm just saying like the goal for them is to constantly keep the most relevant results at the top. And so if your content, gets, knocked down a few steps, a few rankings, that means that there could be some areas for improvement or someone else is doing something better. And so I think that provides an opportunity to really kind of evaluate the competition, see what they're doing, seeing how you could improve your content, or look at the page that Google's, that's showing for a keyword you want to really rank for, and see why, like maybe there's a video carousel on top, or maybe there's a featured snippet, like a Q&A section, like a drop down. So maybe they just changed the way the page looks, and you have to adapt your content to actually match like the new page's like ranking. So from a good place, it comes from, Google constantly just trying to keep the most relevant topics or content on top.
So is Google EAT still relevant? EAT meaning expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I nailed it. It is. And some folks in the industry would argue that it's becoming increasingly more important, and the most important, some of the like most important factors in SEO. And so I believe Marie Haynes, is a subject matter expert in this, and she's got some great videos on YouTube and a sweet blog with a lot of tactical items to really help improve the EAT, as they call it. But yes, it's extremely important. I think particularly if the use case around that could really apply to most people who are trying to rank, for a particular keyword, specifically around like a doctor or lawyer. If you're producing content that's kind of built by somebody on Upwork and who it doesn't have a law degree or medical degree, Google's not really going to rank that, content that well, because they're not an expert. Google's recognizing what expertise kind of looks like. And also if the doctor's profile, for instance, isn't like listed on the page, or if there's an author bio where it has their medical degrees or where they went to school, compared to another blog that just has somebody who wrote something from Upwork. And nothing against Upwork, they're great, but like they're not, sometimes, unless you hire a medical expert on there, that's really going to be hard to do. So it is really important in terms of just showing that expertise, building authority when it comes to just like other websites linking to you. So are other medical blogs like linking to your website? Are other medical authorities in the market talking about you? And then that trustworthiness part kind of comes through what I would say is like a online sentiment. So it's not necessarily like how people are like linking to you. It's like how people are talking about you online. So I think Marie gave an example of like your profile, like on the BBB, Better Business Bureau. So if there's a lot of negative connotation, or if there's a lot of negative talk or language, like, oh, this person didn't, give me a refund, or shipping was like sent to the wrong place. So that's kind of a negative kind of sentiment that's like on the web that Google's able to recognize and build like a lot of those negative keywords to say, persons can't be trusted necessarily. So, it uses these factors to kind of like weigh out a score based on like who you are, who's linking to you, and how people are talking about you. So it's extremely important.
Yeah, that's good. I know I got most of my SEO experience by working at a personal injury law firm, which was extremely competitive. So it kept me on my toes. One thing, there's so many directions I can go into, but you've been mentioning link building, or also known as backlinks. And my former boss was so consumed about link building because he felt like that was the biggest factor on becoming number one. It got to the point, it's just so hard to get quality links within a 30, monthly basis, right? Because you're doing monthly reports. And to the point where we were paying for links. And sometimes we would pay for sponsorships, which is a little bit better. But then other times I'm like, this is not good because now we're paying for links on spammy websites or non-expertise websites. So can you talk about, I guess, some of the downfalls or black hats or just bad tactics when it comes to SEO?
Totally. Yeah. And links is probably the area that it gets the blackest, the darkest in there, because it was so easy to rank, even when I started in 2008 websites, based on just buying links, buying, like forum comments, blog comments, like those were really popular back then. And you could buy them by the thousands. Like you could pay like $20 for like 1,000 links or something like that. And the crazy thing is like some of them worked. And I think that kind of those particular types of tactics never really went away. They just kind of look differently now. So Google has kind of strict guidelines around like purchasing links. And it essentially says that if a website's offering to sell you a link based on the ability to pass page rank, then that's a big no-no. Like don't do that. But to your point, it says not all paid links are bad. Like sponsored links could be okay, assuming they follow other guidelines. Like, I believe one of them is just like adding a no follow tag or adding a sponsor tag to those attributes, right? So you're technically getting just like traffic and not really that, link flow, a link authority from that source. And so I think it gets really, and the thing with links, to be honest, is like, it's not black or white. There's usually some gray area too, when it comes to like some guest posting. So buying links for authority, okay, like that's really bad. And the way people report that is like, or the way Google understands it is people report these websites. So it's really hard and that means that it's really hard for Google to understand what's a purchase link versus what's a natural link. And some of them, it's really hard to tell, quite honestly. The gray area is kind of like when you're guest posting and a website saying like, yeah, we'll give you a link if you pay $50 for this post. What's like the way I sometimes see it is like, are you paying for their time or are you paying for their link? Because they have to sometimes write the content. So it's like, it's a little gray. It's like, well, I'm paying for your time to write this post and I'm offering newsworthy information about my product. So technically, I'm paying for your time and not really the link. And so that's where things get a little gray. Yeah.
And I've been on both sides. And I guess it's okay because if I'm working for an employer where we would write the guest post and submit it to other websites. And I want to talk about content a little bit later, but that was just a lot of content creation because we're writing articles for our website and then an additional 5 to 10 articles for guest posts in order to get that link.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can be, right? But I feel like, for something like that, there is certain level of amount of like links that are being built by cadence. And that's something Google tends to recognize as well. Like if they see a huge spike in links and then that effort kind of stopped and then it's just like kind of narrowed down here, well, your rankings are probably going to tank a little bit because Google's like, well, this looks like kind of a manipulation. It looks like a manual intervention here where these links were being crafted across these blogs and it cost us, $10,000 and it costs $10,000 a month. But then you want to pull back the budget and say, oh, we only want to spend $2,000. Well, those 20 or so blogs fall down to like 3 or 4, and Google recognizes those patterns. So it's probably not going to be good in the long term. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, so let's talk about the correlation between content and SEO. Because, there's just so many moving pieces. Like, I know, yes. I don't know where you want to begin. Like, we're in the middle. But there's just so many moving pieces with SEO. But yeah, the
Yes.
correlation between that and content.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of see it as just like content literally helps to put you on the map in terms of like, if you have a website and it's, 5 to 10 pages, well, Google could find those 5 or 10 pages and start showing you for different keywords. It's probably not going to be at the top of the rankings, but maybe it is. So I usually say my thoughts is just like content puts you on the map. Like good content gets you paid. If you're trying to monetize your website, if you're trying to generate leads, then that's going to ultimately lead to leads or paid, clicks or clicks on the ads that you're running on your website. So it's an understanding of like, what's the purpose of the website, and building content to really tailor towards those ultimate objectives. I think, we spoke a little bit before the call in terms of like what my next strategy is kind of looking like for, the product side. And it's really just building authority-based content. It's like, building webinars. It's building just kind of resource guides for agencies to help manage their productivity, to how to shift from one client to another, how to increase their revenue. If you're an agency and you want to scale up, like how you manage that from an SEO perspective. Like those are all questions that, for me as the expert in this industry, like I had questions too at one point that I'm sure other agencies have as well. So that's good content in my mind. So that's going to help me hopefully get the results that we're looking for. That's the objective behind the site. So I think the content really should tailor towards the objective of what you're trying to accomplish there. And depending on what that is, I would tailor the tactics around that.
Okay. And with content, we know Google is user-friendly when it comes to language. But how can someone select their keywords that they want to be known for in order for them to apply that to their content?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, there are certainly a few tools out there that you could use to help craft those keywords. Some of which you mentioned before, Ahrefs, SEMrush. There's Keyword Finder, which is a really cool tool for like long tail keywords. But I think it starts off with just like understanding the business offering. And sometimes I find that like the keyword research phase also exposes like the company in a sense of like, who are we? What do we do? Like what do I want customers to believe about me? And it's like, I usually have a conversation just like not keywords, because some keywords I'll recommend a client will be like, well, that's not technically us. Like we don't offer that necessarily. And I was like, okay, well, let's find out what you do offer and find the space that we can compete in for those particular terms. So I think it starts off with just a little bit of like talking to the client, understanding who their audience is, how their audience kind of understands the product and any nuances, and then going to the keyword tools to use those for like to find variations of those specific terms as well. So don't let the tools do the heavy lifting for you without like really probing either yourself and your business or your client to understand what they actually do and how they want to be found on the web.
And how many keyword phrases do you recommend a person should have?
Yeah, a lot of SEOs would say like, before I would start here, like in the past, it'd be like focus on 3 to 5 keywords per page. That's kind of like a rule of thumb. But then some SEOs were like, well, don't focus on any. What I would say is like 3 to 5 is actually not that bad to start with. And what happens is if you choose 3 to 5 keywords that have a little bit of like, they're not exactly the same. They're not synonyms really. They're just, they're related terms, right? And so what I typically do is, I'll start with 3 to 5 that are pretty keyed into what my client offers. And I'll optimize the page with those particular keywords, make content like read really well and offer some maybe images, videos for those particular keywords. And then what I do is I go to Google Search Console and I plug that URL and Google will tell me other keywords that I'm actually ranking for that same page. And so I'll go ahead and take those terms and either you could dump them into Google Ads and see if they're actually converting, because we don't have that data in terms of like, we have the keyword data inside of Search Console, but we don't have the data if they're converting inside of Google Analytics, but we do from a paid perspective. So you kind of have to pay for that data. and see which of those long tail terms is actually converting, and either build another piece of content for that particular term, or, know that this is the way people are searching. So use that in your sales documents and stuff like that. So starting with 3 to 5, and then those kind of multiply off of each other, and seeing what those different variations of keywords kind of look like inside of your search console to see like how that page is like ranking in the search results.
Are you a leader who feels like they're struggling? Like someone changed the game you were playing? Somewhere along the course of your career, success shifts from having the right answers to asking the right questions. Through school and much of our career, we are expected to have solutions. So when we move into leadership, we just keep doing what's brought us success so far. But that no longer works. We now need to ask questions so others can come up with solutions. That's why leaders need the coaching skills taught in the Quadrant 3 Leadership Coach Certification Program. For more information, go to conquerleadershipgroup.com/coach-certification to start growing your leadership skills today. One more time, that's conquerleadershipgroup.com/coach-certification. Do you have any advice or tips when it comes to saying the best Houston SEO agency, the best SEO agency or Houston's SEO agency, pretty much adding the best or geography to your keyword phrase?
Yeah, it's certainly, if you're a local business, that makes a lot of sense to add that there. I recommend it, especially for local. The best items, that to me, I like playing with those, honestly. I mean, why not be the best? If you could rank for the best, like, you might as well be. And if you are the best and you have the, expertise and, the authority and trust, and you probably will rank for those keywords kind of naturally. But it doesn't hurt to like put those out there and build that local credibility. Some of the clients that we work with have been local in nature as well. And so some things that work really well are like articles in some of the more popular local publications. Typically if you have enough local authority, meaning you have a good local links, ranking for the best of won't be that difficult, quite honestly, because a lot of those terms like people want to rank for, but people think they're really competitive. In some industries they are, other ones they're not necessarily. But I think, testing them out, seeing if they actually work. But I think your local reviews will kind of speak for themselves too. I definitely recommend it if your business is local in nature, and building that local authority will help rank for those terms. But I don't see anything wrong with it. I want to be the best in SEO in Austin.
Right. Once again, Google and their updates. So they just got rid of Google My Business. Now are integrated into Google Maps or whatever. So is Google still doing the 3-pack, or is that still relevant?
Yeah, the thing that they used to have a 6-pack, which was cool. Now it's like 3, and sometimes I've seen 1. So they're constantly like changing the landscape of that entire real estate on the page. So yeah, there's the maps. Sometimes there's 1 local source, and then sometimes there's 3. And they've done a lot to kind of change those rankings out and change that whole layout of the page. But yeah, it's still definitely relevant, and they do offer that kind of 3-pack.
I think I'm gonna ask you a personal question. So,
sure thing.
So I am fortunate to rank twice in the top 10 when it comes to inclusive marketing consultant.
Amazing.
And because, worked at the law firm, but I feel like I was really lucky because I saw a gap in the market, right? So you have this topic that's kind of scarce at least 2 years ago. So now it's trending upwards. It's becoming a little bit more competitive. And when I did my homework last year, I realized I was the only person in the States that was focusing on inclusive marketing, at least on that first page of Google. So I got really, really lucky. However, I wondered if you can explain this to me. So people will Google inclusive marketing consultant or whatever, and I come up, which is great. However, I've had people outside of Texas reach out to me, but because one was in New York, one was in Sydney, Australia, But because I'm not local, they don't want to work with me, right? So it's been really racking my brain on, I guess, maybe, I don't know if it's so much how can I avoid the problem or how do I convince them to work with me. But it's been an interesting because I work hard on my SEO efforts and I feel like it backfires.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I hear you. That's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma there, right? Because I mean, when you start, and this is just me kind of thinking like on the spot, but like when you start off, building your business, was it like, oh, we want to focus on like the Houston area or particular areas first, rather than a broader sense? Yeah.
No, I think it was definitely broader sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that I was smart about, my strategy at that time was to compete against myself, right? So because I have my company domain and my business, my personal domain, I can link back to myself.
Smart, yeah.
On both websites and, a couple of other things.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, I feel like, even though that happened twice in 1 month, it's kind of a one-off situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how, I don't know how to explain it. So.
Yeah, no, I think like I've seen a little bit of that by most of the keywords that we rank for are going to be like Austin SEO consultant, Austin, SEO, company and stuff. So we do get clients that are local in another, region or another state or, whatever. And so they kind of tell us as well, like, well, you don't really know the local market and stuff. So it's kind of hard for you to, or they'll tell me we want to hire a local company because we feel like they're more grounded to where we are. And my response is typically, with SEO, there's three key areas. It's kind of, I have this approach where I have this framework that could kind of be applied anywhere. So I usually tell them, well, SEO, to rank for SEO, you have to be good in three areas. You have to have a solid technical foundation. You have to have good content, which typically involves, having a local base like keywords and all that good stuff, understand your audience. And then you have to have good authority or links. And so I said, no matter where you are, if you have those three things or you're lacking in one of those three areas, your competition is going to outrank you all the time, no matter where you are. So I think, and that really helps to give them the idea of like, oh, it's not really the company and where they are. It's the framework and it's the approach to this strategy that this company, and they're like, well, I want to work with Michael because he understands that this thing is like, there's rules to this game and this guy understands them. And it doesn't just apply to where you are, but like what you know.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've had your agency for several years. So you've worked with dozens, hundreds of clients, and now you have decided to create your own product. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's scary. It's new. Anything new is kind of like scary. So the product actually came as a result of running the agency since 2012. And so I just realized that in the agency world, there's so many tools, and like processes that sometimes the tools and process don't necessarily like marry each other. And I hit a wall with some of the tools that I'm using to build out strategy. And I think that's where that's what gave kind of life to this new product. I was like, if there's a way that I could combine my process, which is pretty repetitive. I mean, I have an new SEO client. They need a tech audit. We need to do a content audit, and we need to start a link building program. And like I said, I have a framework that I kind of rinse and repeat and use over and over. That's worked pretty well, pretty effectively for us. So I was like, well, instead of doing it all the time and hiring, the people to do it, who most of them would be interns or, some were in SEO, but then they go somewhere else. They'll leverage kind of the knowledge from SEO and then take it somewhere else, which is great. I mean, I have people who work for me in the past and doing great things, which I'm proud of them. But for me, I'm just like, it kind of leaves me in a position where I have to kind of retrain someone, so again, part of the process kind of gaps. So the goal was to automate a lot of the process that that we have to kind of rinse and repeat. And so that again gave birth to the idea of the tool. So the tool will basically do all the technical audits for us, do the content audit, and then allow us to plan an effective link building campaign. And so when we get a new client or a prospective client we're building out a proposal to, all we have to do is just scan their website. It gives us all the insights in terms of what the site needs to do and improve their SEO. And then it allows us to loop in the right people to fix those actual issues. So it turns into a project management system at the very end of it. And so that was, and it's been such a game changer in terms of just like how I approach, my SEO accounts. And certainly in SEO, you can't automate everything. There is a human touch that is required, but SEO also takes a village too. It's not just me that does SEO. I need the programmer to fix the technical items. I need a good writer to write good content, and I need good PR people who are out there actively building a pipeline for new links. So the tool kind of brings a lot of those things together in one place, helps me automate a lot of the manual processes that I had to deal with before, and allows me just to kind of jump right into multiple projects to, from one client to another. Some clients may need more heavy tech work, while others need more content work. Well, how do you kind of leave the bookmark in terms of where you left off? This tool kind of allows me to jump back and forth to each account and know exactly where I am.
I love it. And the name of your product?
Oh, I should have mentioned that, right? It's called it's Evisio. It's evisio.co.
And we'll have that in the show notes. Okay, so I know we covered a lot, and I know I haven't asked everything, but what are some other things that we probably haven't mentioned regarding SEO that people need to know and consider moving forward, especially when it comes to their marketing strategy?
Yeah, no, I think for one, understanding that SEO is a valid traffic source. And it's, if you look inside your Google Analytics and you see your number one referral source or number one traffic source is organic, that means you should probably pay attention to that, because you want to keep that free traffic kind of coming to your website, leverage, what you have now to build new content ideas to generate more traffic, and all that good stuff. So SEO is definitely important for you, especially if that's your number one traffic source. Another part is, if it's not, then there's a huge opportunity to really start enhancing your SEO, talking to the SEO specialists around how can I get my organic from the number 3 traffic channel to number 1. And sometimes that may vary. Again, there's different use cases where, maybe there's a reason why it's not number 1. But for most cases, anyone could pretty much take advantage of some of these tactics that could really help you really move the needle and generate traffic and really hit the goals of your website.
I actually do have one more question.
Yeah, I should know.
Or maybe 2. I know people are going to kill me with this if I don't ask you. Does SEO apply to social media platforms? So, for example, I know if I can Google myself, especially my name, LinkedIn, Twitter will come up first. Those platforms have their own search boxes, their own keywords, especially LinkedIn. So, yeah, how does SEO and social media work hand in hand? Yeah,
no, I think it seems like they're becoming more and more integrated and connected. There are big differences between search engines, how search engines handle like SEO necessarily, and in how social media kind of handles their own like platform. Google's more of like a quality based, platform, whereas social media is more like engagement based. But I think understanding that any product with an algorithm, there's always going to be guidelines, there's going to be tactics and use cases. So I think understanding those underlying principles will help you kind of compete on both levels. There are some SEOs that say that having a strong social media presence can help indirectly help you with some of your SEO, meaning like if you're really popular on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or wherever, people will actually search for you on Google and then link to you because they first heard from you by a friend on a social media platform. Right. So it does kind of have those ripple effects in terms of what could help you on the organic side. I have seen particular cases where it's like apparel companies I think one was a religious based apparel company, had a really strong Facebook following. and I would analyze their backlinks. And I mean, their backlinks were pretty decent, but there were other sources out there that had stronger backlink profiles, but they were always ranking on the top of Google for some of the most competitive keywords. So something was up, something was helping just kind of those rankings, probably in terms of that trust and authority that they built throughout Google, but by way of Facebook to get them those rankings. So, I mean, it can't hurt. They're definitely different. One's quality based, one's engagement, but there are certain underlying principles to win on both and each one of those platforms independently.
Yeah, I like how you said that. Google's for quality, socials for engagement. And I know for me, I do get a lot of my clients, I guess, based off of my SEO, based off of ranking. But when they check all of my social, like I'll see them obviously on LinkedIn. I can see who looks at my profile. And, when I get on the phone with them, they're like, oh yeah, you came across Google. But yeah, then I went to your LinkedIn and Twitter and I was like, who knows what I said on Twitter? But but I always encourage people to be consistent because people aren't going to really check you out, give you this background check via your social media platforms and not just website. So you have to be consistent on all things. Okay, so last question. SEO. How long does it take to rank on, we'll just say, the first page?
Yes, that's the ultimate question, right? Yeah. And that's a great one too, and most SEOs will throw out a number in terms of like how many months it will take. But I would say like it depends on like the tactics and use case goals that you have, and that could kind of determine how fast you could get your rankings. And meaning like how you kind of have to know the condition of your website. If your website has had like, some black hat tactics done before, and it's going to take a manual intervention to fix some of those, like disavow some bad links, basically tell Google not to count certain links, then it's probably going to take you months to rank on the first page of Google. But if you have a really high quality website, you have a lot of good backlinks, you decide to revamp your website and clean up the code and make it really mobile friendly, you could see results probably within a couple of months from time that you after you launch it, essentially. So results could come a lot faster to you if you've been working on your website and you've been trying to really get it ranking, but something's up. Chances are, if you just kind of put it on a nice clean platform with like clean code and it's really fast and it's mobile friendly, you could see some upticks just by upgrading your system itself. And so it depends, right? Because just in terms of the tactics that it takes and how aggressive you're going in on those tactics, that could really determine how fast you're going to get on those rankings. So I know it's not an easy, like magical number, but again, it's like, what's the goal? What do we want to do here? We want to rank for a keyword. Okay, cool. Let's do analysis of who's ranking. Let's find out their links, and then let's go after their links. And then by the time those websites put your link on there, that could be a 6-month program. So, it just depends on those particular tactics and how long the manual work's going to takes to actually get the stuff done, because SEO only works when it's done. It only works when it's on your website. So that's how fast can you get the stuff done? I would ask.
So I definitely agree. Give it a 3 to 6 month window, a consistent window, right? So you're checking your website every week, weekly report, especially, if you want to hit those goals in the next 3 to 6 months. And then I'm going to just throw this out there for all of the, especially the e-commerce platforms. The holidays are near, right? So now's the time to work on your SEO. Or not
Such
November.
a good point. Such a good point.
Now's the time. So if you got holiday and Christmas products that you want to fly off the shelves, now's the time to work on your SEO.
Absolutely. That's the best tip of everything today, honestly. It's so true. Yeah, because people think they could do SEO right around like December or November. And it's like, no, it's way too late. You're way too late. You missed a big opportunity, big window. Yeah.
And it's like, I know, but I don't know. And I remember a couple of years ago, I did a quick video on, I don't know, keyword analysis or whatever. And I was like, if you want me to do this for you, $99. And so many people hit me up, but they had holiday gifts. And I was like, it's not going to be a win for you. And I'm not going to take your money like that. So that came to mind.
Nice. Yeah.
All right,
who knows? That could work again with a little tweak. We tweak the strategy a bit.
It is. It's like
charge $200.
And I think people get caught up. So once again, SEO is not the sexy thing of marketing, but I think depending, especially if you have a product, I think people get so caught up on now Instagram, TikTok, and even Shopify, because you can browse, you can click and buy a product instantly. And then sometimes they neglect other aspects of marketing because of those instant sales. But it's, in this case, SEO it's an additional element that you can enhance your overall brand.
Absolutely. That's great. I mean, I think if anyone's thinking of hiring an SEO or doing it themselves, is like understanding marketing principles first is only going to help you be a stronger SEO or help you find a strong SEO out there. Absolutely.
So it was a pleasure talking to you. I know.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy this conversation. So how can people find you?
Yes. So LinkedIn would probably be the best way to connect with me, or email. I'll put my email out there. It's okay. It's michael@evisio.co. It's evisio.co.
All right. So once again, Michael, thank you for this fabulous conversation. And you, the listener, thank you for continuous supporting the Marketing for the Culture podcast. Remember, I believe in you. And always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We would like to thank our sponsor, the Concord Leadership Group, and their 10-week leadership program, with the next course beginning in September. Remember to apply today at concordleadershipgroup.com/coach-certification. That is concordleadershipgroup.com/coach-certification. Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.